This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sophia Yvette.
Welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. Are you in need of a non-fiction, purpose-driven author and speaker? Well, one may be closer than you think. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing your good neighbor, Becca S. Ramirez, author and speaker of School Crushers. Becca, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Sophia. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, and we are so excited to learn all about you and your new book. Can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a speaker and an author. My most recent book came out 3 years ago, is School Crushers, Empowering God's Daughters to be the Warriors He Created Them to Be. Can be found on Amazon. But I really am focused on encouraging everyone, but women in particular, in their identity as God's daughters and empowering them to live a life that shows it to the world. And so I do that through both the writing and speaking.
Wow. Now, you must have a crazy backstory. How did you get into this business?
Well, I kind of stumbled into it, but I have always been a verbal processor. It's kind of how I have found that I learn best is by kind of talking things out, which can sometimes drive my husband crazy. But within that, I've always been a journaler as well. And so as I would study or as I would read my Bible, I'm writing out questions. I'm writing out little notes of like, oh, this kind of stood out to me. I wonder where else I can find this, and starting to make some of those connections. And so I had been kind of casually just writing on my own for years and years. I started off in the nonprofit world. I worked for an organization that found short-term mission opportunities for people to go over and to support Bible translators. So it was things like teachers, it was things like construction, it was things like administrative work. And part of that job was to listen to their stories, to hear their testimonies, and to write them out. And then it transitioned into being able to then train them to go on some of these trips. And I found a love for it. I found a love for hearing people's stories and for teaching them how to be equipped to go and share with the area that they were going into. And so it just kind of built from there. And after we moved from Florida to Texas, almost 12 years ago, God just kind of laid on my heart, said, you've been writing this thing, you have this on your computer, find a way to get it published. And so I did. And I came out with my first book in 2014. It was called Getting Past the Start. I had no idea what I was doing, like completely full vulnerability. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to be obedient to it. But I was like, okay, this is how it's going to launch off. And I joined the Moms Speakers Network, which is moms of preschoolers. And so I could be on their website and people could try to find me. And I was like, okay, this is going to be it. And we actually ended up in a massive thing that just kind of flipped our world upside down a couple years later, and everything got put on hold. And so within that, that included the writing, that included the speaking. I was like, okay, maybe I didn't understand this. But it came back around. I started writing School Crushers. It took me a couple years to actually get it written and to do the research for it. But then when I launched it, I was working at my church, and they opened up opportunity for me to be able to teach on it and to write content from the book itself. And so it just kind of developed from there.
Wow. What a backstory you have. Yeah. Now, God certainly directs our path. And thank you for sharing that with our listeners. Getting into things a bit deeper, though, what is the most common myth or misconception you come across in the industry that you're in?
So one of the things that is pretty prevalent is that experts have all the answers. One of the challenges as an independent author and as a lesser known speaker is that you see a lot of the big names. You see the people that have the larger platforms and are famous for them. And a lot of them have done a lot of work to get there. It doesn't happen overnight, but the reality is they still don't have all the answers. We all have to study. We all have to research. We all are teaching from our own experiences. And so it's not something that's just a given people don't have all the answers. And so I think we like to dub ourselves as experts, and we are in certain fields, in certain formats, but we're constantly learning, we're constantly growing.
And as somebody who uses faith to guide your path, what is your compass in how you learn, how you grow? Do you have coaches? Do you go directly to God? What does that look like for you?
It's a little bit of both. So it's being very intentional on my time in the Bible and really researching it. It's finding sources that I trust, that I feel really have gotten to the root of what words are. They aren't just kind of spouting off their own. It's like, this sounds good, or I'm only working from this one translation. When I'm doing my research, I'm looking at multiple translations of the Bible to see how it was translated, to see how it's reading in these different formats. I don't just read one person's commentary. I read multiple commentaries, and so it's kind of building that out. But I also have some very good friends and pastors that I trust, and I trust their background, and I trust their knowledge to, like, when I have a question, it's like, hey, this is kind of what I'm processing. What is your experience with this? Or how do you read this? Or how do you understand this? To really kind of make it as rounded out as possible.
Well, God certainly has interesting ways in communicating with all of us.
Yeah.
So, Becca, we know marketing is the heart of every business. How do you currently market your business, and who is your target audience?
So I am primarily on Instagram and Facebook right now. I do have a YouTube channel, but it's not super active. So you can find it, but there's not a whole lot on there. There's a couple speaking that had been recorded. They aren't the best quality, but they are there. So you can get a sample of it. But within that, so I typically use those as my social. I do have a website that's pretty minimal as far as what you can find on it. But within all of that, my audience are individuals who want to grow in their faith. And so if you are a believer, if you are a women's group, if you have a Bible study that you're leading, those are my people. They are the ones that I am most likely to connect with. They aren't the only ones, but they are the main ones. And so within that, that's, like I said, like women's groups, small groups, if your church is having like a retreat or something like that, those are really the places that I am best able to serve.
And have you ever thought about doing your own podcast?
I have. I've considered it. I've roughly recorded a couple of episodes and then completely changed everything that I was going to do for the formatting. And so everything got put on hold for that. But it is definitely something that is in the works and should be around at some point in time in the future.
So, Becca, what is the reason why you do what you do, and what is your goal to accomplish by, promoting the word, getting the word out there? Am I understanding correctly what your goal is with your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I write and I speak to encourage people in their identity as children of God and to empower them to live a life that shows it to the world. The current season that I'm in, I've really kind of been focusing in on storytelling. The fact that we all have a story to share, and that when we are able to look and remember and see how the hand of God has been in our lives. The Bible constantly tells us, remember the works I have done. He's constantly telling the Israelites to remember that when he brought them out of Egypt. Remember when I brought you through the desert. Remember when I brought you into the promised land. It's the remember what he has done. And so when we're able to do that, all of a sudden we're able to remember not only who he is, but whose we are. And that is our identity. That is the thing that no matter our circumstances, no matter what's going on around us, that is not going to change. And so when we can live a life based from that point, we're able to walk confidently. We're able to walk into the blessings that he has for us. And so the things that I'm writing, the things that I speak on when I'm teaching, it's all to bring us to that place of assurance and hope.
Now you don't have to go in depth with this, but do you have your own testimony yourself as to why you believe this so strongly?
I do. It's been bits and pieces along the way. And so I grew up in a Christian home, but didn't always make the best decisions. I think it's pretty common for most of us, especially through the teenage and my college years. I did not make the best decisions. But one of the things that never faltered for me was that I always knew that God loved me. I always knew that he was there and that I had not gone too far from him. And so it really encouraged me to, once I kind of came back around and really ignited my faith and said, okay, no, I want to walk this out. It's not just something I believe. I want it to be really integral to who I am, and that it is a lifestyle. It's not just something that's in the corner. But there have been different seasons where God has just worked in different ways. And I mentioned like earlier on that after a couple years after my first book was published, my 3 kids and I were actually in a car accident, and my oldest daughter ended up with a broken neck. The layman's term for her injury was an internal decapitation. So she was in a halo vest for 6 months, and we experienced the miracles of God, that she lived, that she not only survived, but she ended up thriving, that she's still able to do things and walk with, you would never know that she was injured. She's a freshman in high school this year, and does a lot of theater and acting and dancing, and you would never know. And so that really opened up my eyes and my heart to recognize the hand of God in through my life. And so I wanted to share that. And actually that story itself will be in a book that's coming out on October 14th in partnership with Hope Books, called Miracles Still Happen. And so that will be the next book. It's a collaboration. So it's myself and 9 other authors, but, and that tells details of that story, for what that miracle looked like. But it's really set me on that trail to trust that he's there through all of it.
Wow. Well, God bless your heart for getting you through that struggle. He, like I said, he works in mysterious ways.
He does.
Where can our listeners go to learn more about your business? And we're almost out of time today. Just a final thing.
Absolutely. You can find me on all the socials. It's Becca S. Ramirez. Like I said, Instagram and Facebook is where I post the most often. And so the website is also beccasramirez.com. So you can find me there.
Well, Becca, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and we wish you and your business the best moving forward.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpfrisco.com. That's gnpfrisco.com. Or call 469-221-9345.
All right, Becca, you did a great job. Let's go over next steps for you.